Joseph Freinademetz's dreams of the promised land faded quickly. The bishop sent the newcomer to the Sai Kung Peninsula. Its one small fishing village had a population of about 200. But besides being fishermen, these people were also pirates. For the South Tyrolean, it was like diving into cold water. His tutor there, Father Luigi Piazzoli, went to visit the small number of Christians in the more remote parts of the peninsula. For several weeks, Freinademetz was alone. He studied the language day and night, suffered from stomach and intestinal problems, and ended up with an attack of malaria. It was disheartening. After 6 months, it was Freinademetz's turn to travel from island to island, meeting the few Catholics who lived there. He soon realized that these people, who were very curious about Europeans, showed little interest in the good news he brought them. It was frustrating. Weeks later, when he returned to Sai Kung, he could see that the pagoda close to the mission, which still exists today, attracted more people than the poor, small Catholic church. His prejudices deepened. Very disappointed, he writes home,
"The Chinese are not as blessed by the Creator as Europeans. They simply are incapable of being moved by higher thoughts."
The dreams of the 28-year-old Freinademetz seemed to be shattered. He was immersed in a world totally alien to the one from which he had just come. Joseph Freinademetz came from the Dolomites, in the heart of the Alps. His homeland, present-day South Tyrol, belonged to Austria until 1919. His family home, at Oyes, at an altitude of 1,500 meters, is only 20 minutes from St. Leonardo's parish church. Jovan Mattia Freinademetz and Anna Maria Sotval-Jarret were 4 years married when their son, Joseph, was born on April 15, 1852. They already had a girl and 2 boys. Later, 9 other children were born, 4 of whom died almost immediately after birth. The family owned 20 hectares of land, of which 7 were unproductive. In the middle of the 19th century, no one could foresee that a small place like the remote and Ladino-speaking Val Badia would one day be a tourist attraction. Life in these mountain valleys were characterized by hard labor, poverty, and a deep-rooted faith. It wasn't for nothing that people spoke of Tyrol as a holy land. The church marked the year's passage and set the rhythm for life. Recitation of the Rosary every evening in front of the family altar was daily practice. Every Friday, when the snow did not prevent him, Joseph's father would go to the shrine of the Holy Cross, an hour's walk from Oyes. The parish priest advised that little Eugep, Ladino name for Joseph, be sent for studies. So the small boy of 10 crossed the mountains to the bishop's city of Brixen with a family friend. It was a 12-hour trip on foot. Joseph did not know enough German because at home in Gadertal he was taught in Italian. Consequently, he had to repeat 2 years of elementary school. He learned German so well, however, that he got the highest marks in it in high school, although not as his mother tongue, as one remark about him noted. In 1872, at the age of 20, he entered the seminary in Brixen. At that time, the small bishop's city fostered an extraordinary spirit of openness toward the world. The teacher at the grammar school, Canon Regular Chrysostomus Mitterrutzner, frequently read letters to the students from missionaries in Egypt, Sudan, or from the banks of the White Nile. The vast world at large was making its entry into Egypt's small world. Johann Thobel, who taught church history and dogma, recognized in the non-Christian world the presence of rays of truth and virtue, and traces of an innate religious, ethical predisposition and primordial revelation. Vincent Gasser was the Prince Bishop of Brixen. Having participated in the First Vatican Council, he had acquired a more universal vision of the Church. This may have contributed to Joseph Freinademetz's increasing interest in mission. However, formation for the missions was not available at that time in the German-speaking area. Ordained a priest in 1875, Joseph Freinademetz was appointed assistant priest to St. Martin's Parish in neighbouring Thurn. As was customary in Tyrol, the school became his principal commitment, until he read about a newly founded German missionary seminary.
The purpose of the foundation is to promote missionary activity in non-Catholic countries, and foremost in the pagan lands beyond India.
A few weeks later, Joseph wrote a letter to Arnold Janssen, the founder of the missionary seminary in Steil.
For years, I have been thinking of dedicating myself to missionary work. Hence, with great respect, I dare ask for admission to your seminary.
Bishop Vincent Gasser was not eager to let him go.
The Bishop of Brixen says no, but the Catholic bishop says yes.
On August 27, 1878, Joseph Freinademetz came to the missionary seminary in Steil, founded only 3 years earlier. 7 months later, he was on the move again, this time from his beloved homeland to China.
I do not wish to describe the departure scene in my family home. Enough. I asked for my father's blessing and then left my beloved Valbadia, perhaps never to see it again.
He was right. Joseph Freinademetz was never to see his homeland again. The pastor, Father Trebel, had once declared, "If you become a missionary, I will cut off both my ears." That remark cost him 70 gulden, paid to Freinademetz on his way to China. The housekeeper looked further ahead. When Freinademetz had his hair cut, she kept a few locks as a remembrance for when you become a saint, she said. These are the only relics we have of Freinademetz. This was the deeply Catholic world from which Joseph Freinademetz came. From the narrow valleys of Tyrol to international Hong Kong, a difficult transition. Of the 140,000 Chinese in Hong Kong at that time, only 1,000 were Catholic. In addition to these, there were 10,000 more comprised of English, Portuguese, Americans, French, German, Spanish, Filipinos, Indians and Persians. Altogether, a small number for the church. His dreams came to naught. Freinademetz wrote,
"This was most bitter for a young missionary like me. I came from Europe with fiery zeal and hoped that every evening I would be too weak to lift my arms, tired by too many baptisms and sermons. Instead, my path was covered with thorns, and only once in a while a modest rose would appear."
Such a rose was probably the little Joseph Yeh, who was baptized by Joseph Freinademetz in Sai Kung on October 19, 1879. The Catholic Church in Hong Kong today, like this cathedral between the skyscrapers, still resembles a small